After closing millions in MCA deals and sales training shops that fund 5, 10, 20, $40 million a month all across America, I've learned one thing. Your script is fucking useless unless you have the right tonality. Every sentence out of your mouth, the prospect is subconsciously screening you and trying to decide if you're worth listening to. If you mess that up, the prospect will just think this is another salesperson and then not even listen to your pitch. So in this video, I'm gonna be going over the right tonality, different tweaks you can make, and some underrated sales techniques so you can get to closing left and right. Okay, so let's talk about tonality. So tonality is what's happening in the subconscious mind of the person that you're speaking to. That's what they're picking up on. So for example, if I'm talking super fast, right, I might come off anxious. If I'm talking really slow, like this, it might come off like I'm very detached. I have no investment or no interest in what we're talking about. So there's mediums in between, and a lot of times reps, and myself included, will just talk really fast. Now, when you're new in sales or in anything, you think the faster you talk, the smarter you sound. And it's quite arguably the opposite. I used to think when I'm calling, because I had so much information, so much intel, so much product knowledge, that like if I could just get it all out, I would sound better and smarter. And then I would hear people on the phones who did that and it sucked. You just sound like you don't know what you're doing. So a lot of people, they have different ways of how they talk. Some people talk fast, some people talk slow. And depending on your style of how you do it, you might need to either talk down lower or talk up higher. Alex Ramosi talks about this, where it's so critical to know your own style because everybody's style is not going to be the same. There are reps that talk super fast, and then you bring them back, and then reps that talk super slow, and they pause all this, they don't care, and you have to bring them up. Now the caveat is that when they talk really slow like that, that's a really good indicator that they can be good at sales because it shows that they're not anxious and they don't come off as desperate, as detached, as needy. If you can't let 1 or 2 seconds land during a conversation, you are automatically coming off attached. So what I mean by that is this. That's what just happened. I took a break for a second in between and I didn't need to fill the space with words. So that's called being confident in what I'm saying, that I don't need to fill silences. Now, where this comes in most is at the deal closing. And I talk about this a lot. Whoever speaks first loses. I learned this from my dad from in the car business, that when you give terms, you always want to be quiet after the price. Now, I know that's not tonality, but it all falls under the same type of umbrella where you have to be okay with silences, because the more okay you are with silences, that's going to affect your tone. Human beings psychologically pick up on tonality more than the words itself. So for example, this is how we evolved in primate species to work in groups. You know, it's the same thing, there's called mirror neurons, that if I look at you and I start smiling like this, your instinct is to smile back. Now, even though you can fight that off, you initially register it and then you stop smiling, but your motor neurons psychologically start working. This is called the limbic system. This is your reptilian brain, and that's why, like, I was playing paddle a few weeks ago, and I was sitting there after the game, or I'm sorry, in the middle of practice, and then I looked to my left, and out of the corner of my eye, I just ducked, and a ball, a tennis paddle ball, I just missed it, and I did not have time to think. Duck, okay? I just turned out of the corner of my eye and just saw something, and then boom, duck. That's my reptilian brain. So that's the psychological component, your mammalian system, your threat response that we are hacking in essence here. We're using this to our advantage. So right away, if you come off on the call and you say,
"Hey, how's it going? My name is Sam. I'm with XYZ company."
You come off salesy. Okay, so I want you to tell me what the difference is, how this sounds. Okay.
"Hey, this is Sam with XYZ Capital, looking to get you funding. How are you doing today?"
Okay, so think about that for a second, and now this. "Hey, yeah, I was reaching out. It looked like you guys were looking at funding. I'm not quite sure if we're able to help, but what were you looking to accomplish with the capital?" So right away, these are two different sides of the same coin. Doesn't mean the salesy's bad. Doesn't mean the other one is good. It's just you want to use them at different moments. You know, if let's say you're talking to a prospect and they're telling you their business plans and growth and expansion, you're darn right that you want to be excited for them. "Oh, wow, you're looking to do expansion. Okay, how much expansion? How many tables are we adding? What jobs are we looking to get? What equipment are we looking to get?" And by you matching their energy, that's an example of when that can actually work. Okay, so let's go to the opening. So the opening tonality, we talk about this all the time. It's the pattern interrupt. A lot of sales trainers use this. I think I traced it back to like Aristotle, but a lot of newer coaches, newer sales trainers use it. Jeremy Miner is one of them. Sandler Sales Training, I think, brought it around in the 70s, the 80s, where you're interrupting their pattern, and this doesn't have to work on the beginning. It can also work during, but we're using this in the beginning. The tonality is going to be in the opening of the call, if it's a cold call. So if it's not a cold call, don't worry about this, but it's still good to know. So you're calling the prospect and you're saying, hey, I'm looking for a little bit of help. Okay, or hey, can you help me out for a moment? There's different words, but the tonality, you see how I'm even furrowing my brows. I'm like, hey, can you help me out? Because that's the evolutionary response. Again, I cannot control that. But when I give that tonality, my brain makes my body do that. So when you're doing the pattern interrupt, what I see a lot of people fail to do is they just read the script.
Hey, Mr. Business Owner, I'm looking for a little bit of help. Hey, I'm looking for a little bit of help. Hey, I'm looking for a little bit of help.
That is not a pattern interrupt. That's the script, but you're not doing the actual work of using your tonality. So you really want to say is, I'm looking for a little bit of help here. Because now it sounds like an actual curiosity tone. Like I'm actually curious because I'm actually looking. And the reason we do this is because we're seeing if we can help the business owner. We're actually saying, hey, listen, can we qualify this person? A lot of reps make the mistake of just calling and just pitching everybody the same.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Sam. I'm with XYZ. We're reaching out because we offer this. You're pre-approved. We offer this longer term.
You're just pitching. They're not listening. And you're not separating yourself from every other salesperson that's dialing them. These people are getting 100 calls an hour. So you really have to separate yourself. And the way that I like to train this is the pattern up. Now there's other ways too, but this is the one that I found is the most effective, especially on cold calls. Again, if you're not outbound dialing, cold calling, or if you're not cold calling, you might not need to use this, but it's still good to learn the lesson of the tonality. So, hey, I'm looking for a little bit of help, and that's gonna open them up for just a second to just get them to unlock. Now you go into your qualification pitch, okay? You're going into your discovery. That's how tonality helps you on the opening. Okay, let's talk about the curious investigator tone. So when you're talking to a business owner and they say they don't want funding or that the rates were bad in the past, you really want to come off, your goal is not to convince them, it's to discover, it's to find out. So you're going to say, when they say, I don't want funding.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And may I ask, why is that? Was that something to do with the rates, the terms?
So I'm empathetic, but I'm also looking to do discovery. I'm not just turning them around and saying,
oh, well, I offer better rates, or, oh, come on, take my money. I know you're looking, take my money.
That's the mistake of being aggressive and challenging their tonality right away. We're not doing that. So that's the curious investigator tone.
Yeah, okay, so you weren't looking for funding, so help me understand, and why is that?
So do you see how the tonality, I'm not just saying, okay, and why is that? That's more of a challenging, that's gonna be a turnoff. So I'm actually going with their actual flow. Okay, so now let's talk about the doctor tone. So the doctor tone is where you're talking in a downward inflection because you just know your stuff, right? You really know your business, you know your product. So if I'm talking to a, let's say I'm talking to a restaurant owner and I'm speaking to him about our delivery app fees, eating away at your margins. How many tables do you have? So as I'm talking to him, he's understanding that I know his business. Now, let's say that he says that he doesn't want to do a funding because it doesn't work with his cash flow. Then I might say,
No, I totally understand, and that's what a lot of my restaurant owner clients say initially, but we're able to structure the program, the funding, so it fits their cash flow cycle.
So you see how I'm coming back, I'm rebuttaling that objection with the tonality of a certainty, where I'm a super professional and I know what I'm talking about. Now the bonus here is that I always end with the reframe. So remember that the objection was it doesn't match, I don't like them, or it doesn't work with my cash flow, and then I come back, the rebuttal is saying, totally makes sense, so I'm listening, acknowledging, directing. That's from the book, so I'm listening to what he said, I'm acknowledging what he said, and then I'm going to direct with the reframe. So totally understand, that makes sense. A lot of restaurant owners that I speak to and that I do business with say the same thing initially, but we're able to find a structure that matches with their cash flow cycle. This might mean that we're pulling, on the heaviest cash flow days of the week, or we're able to make something else work that maybe not be a bridge funding. So what would you use the capital for if the terms made sense? You see how I came in with the reframe right after. So I listened to what he said, I acknowledged him, and then I reframed. Okay, moving on. This just happened on a deal where we have an approval and it's a $35K deal. The rate is a 169. So not the greatest terms on this. And initially the business owner was like, I'm not taking that. I have an offer that's 1,000% better. Ours was $439 a day. His approval he had is like $115 a day. Now most reps would fight him. They'd fight and say, oh, ours is better. They would trash the competition. And so what I went into is straight up discovery, Dr. Tonality, certainty. I'm really looking to see what the situation is and also curious. So right away I go, okay, so that approval, who is that with? And I'm sort of doing that to seed doubt. Like, that's a BS approval. But I'm not sure yet. I'm not going to just lie. Like, most people are going to say if they have a better approval elsewhere, oh, that's fake, that's BS. Now, that happens a lot. But I want to just confirm before I just say that, because it might not be the case. And so I said, who is that with? And he gave the name of a competitor, well, not really a competitor of mine, but another shop. And I said, who is that with? And he gave me the name of a shop, and this shop I know does good business. I know they're not bait and switching. I know they're not lying. So right away I knew that this was a real approval. So what I said to him was, okay, now what happened? Like I know you guys are potentially this and this and this, and I go into more discovery, and then it turns out this offer was from a couple weeks ago. He's not sure, and there's something with this guy's file that I think he'll get killed in underwriting. There's a high chance, a high likelihood. Plus he's got online bank statements. So I kind of shifted to like, look, I don't even know if this makes sense, but why don't we just get this across the finish line first to see if it even gets approved, and by doing that, we would do final underwriting. Let's get the agreement in place and send out the contracts to even know if we have a deal or not. Because look, we might not even have a deal. This could be much ado about nothing. So 1,000% the guy was like, you know what, absolutely, let's do that. He's going to send the driver's license voided check, and let's just see if the offer is real. And the way that I accomplished this was that I actually heard him out. Now, this isn't breaking news, but he got bait and switched and scammed on the last one. I literally hear it from almost every client, and I heard him out and I listened to him. And what ended up happening is as soon as he said that, I put the phone on mute and I court searched him to look for something, and I'm not sure, I don't think we found anything. But because of that, he took his time and gave out the information of what happened, and I was listening to him. And that's what made him want to move forward with us, because I listened to him. Most people shut business owners down. They don't care whatever they say. They just want to get out there whatever they want to say. This is how being silent and letting them talk is such a cheat code, especially in any sales and especially this business. So long story short, he went from I'm never taking this deal to now let's see the contracts and see if we actually have something. That's your goal. That's what you're looking to do. Is just to get them to the next phase, and then there's really not much you can do besides presenting the offer, showing them how the structure makes sense. And if it doesn't work, hey, it doesn't work. There's no pressure here. But I promise you, by showing them that way like a professional, they're going to want to work with you. And if they take funding, they'll go with you. You can certainly slam dunk people and hard close people, but in my experience in this industry, it just doesn't really work anymore. There's too much competition. It's so saturated. They're getting calls left and right. They're getting calls with lies. So really the detached consultant approach is the best one. And by you pulling back, they'll always lean in. Another one I learned from my dad in the car business, the takeaway close. And when you're fighting somebody tooth and nail,
you might just say, look, this might not be a good fit, or maybe this isn't for you. We do XYZ, we like to work with XYZ, maybe that's not you, and there's no pressure. So I don't want to put pressure on you, sir.
And then you be quiet and see what happens. And 99% of the time when you pull back, they pull in. Remember, you want to lead without sounding controlling. So an example of this would be, and I still do this sometimes, if I'm really backed up and I'm slammed, I just know I need an answer to 5 questions, okay? The answers to these 5 questions will get me through, so I know if we have a deal or not, whether the person's qualified or not, etc. So what happens if I'm really busy, I'll just steamroll people and then cut them off while they're talking to get to my next answer. Now, this always isn't great because you're challenging them. On the flip side, you're coming off as an expert that's detached, where you just really know your business. But in most cases, it's better not to do that. It's better to listen and then use their answers to guide the next question. So for example, do you have any fundings currently? If they say yes.
Okay. Now, what funders are they with? What are your balances? When did you get the funding? How much are you currently paying, right?
If they say no.
Okay. And why is that? Have you ever looked for funding in the past?
What I'm looking for is, a myriad of answers, but you see how I'm using their answer to go flow into the next question. Like if I said to them, do you have any fundings? And they said yes, and my next question is, okay, how much are you looking for? I'm kind of missing a core piece here, because as we know, a file can have 500K revenue, but they only have 20K of true revenue because of, let's say, other fundings that they're paying on, or fundings that, because of other fundings that came in. Let's say they were stacked heavily, or they took one big funding in this month. That's the kind of questions you want to ask to find out. The most underrated discovery question you can ask is, what were you looking to accomplish with the capital? That sounds so basic, but nobody asks that question. They say, how much do you need? And this bothers me. How much do you need? And it bothers me because I used to do this myself, but now I know there's a better way. When you say how much do you need, you sound like you're just taking their order. And if you come off from a frame of an order taker, you're gonna get stepped on, especially in this business. B2B entrepreneurs, high ego, high revenue business owners that are potentially doing millions of dollars a year, if not more, and there are more. You don't wanna come off as someone that's an order taker. Now, not to say that being kind and being receptive and being of service is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a time and a place, and it's not on the opening of a cold call, or it's not on the opening of a discovery call. We want to find out, what are they doing with the money. Now, if they say to you, it's expansion or working capital or payroll, you really want to dig deeper. So you want to ask more questions to find the root of it. So for example, this is in my new book. Let's say they need the money for equipment. Let's say they're a landscaping company. Most reps would stop there and say, okay, well, maybe I'll turn you over to equipment financing. Or they'll say, okay, well, how much is the equipment? And then go down that road, when really you could say,
okay, and is that because your equipment is outdated, it's old, is there licensing issues, are they not working, do you need more?
And they might say, well, no, we need more equipment because we just got 5 new HOA contracts. Okay, so now this is an expansion problem. It's not just an equipment problem. So there might be other ways that you can help this business owner. Maybe you can help them with a line of credit, where they can actually use the capital. Maybe another position of funding where they have working capital to cover, payroll because of this new expansion, or trucks, whatever the situation. You really want to dig deeper and find out the true meaning, the reasoning behind what they're looking to do with the capital. All right, guys, I hope this helps. Any objections that you're dealing with, go ahead and drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to give you the rebuttals on the next video. Subscribe for more.